Welcome everybody, it's Georgia from Cybercrime Magazine. I'm at the Herjavec Group headquarters in Toronto today, meeting with their executive team members. And right now I'm meeting with Mr. Ira Goldstein, the Senior Vice President of Corporate Development. Thanks for taking some time out, Ira.
My pleasure, really happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your background in cybersecurity and your experience with Herjavec Group. I know you've been here for quite some time now.
Yeah, so this is my 10th year with Herjavec Group. Started with the company when it really was a reseller that provided some professional services, but early in the journey of where we are today, which is really a managed security services provider that delivers the entire life cycle of security services. I came into cybersecurity from another industry. I studied economics and political science, and I was really fascinated by technology, but had no classical training in engineering. And I'm from Toronto and really looked around at what interesting companies there were in Toronto and what people were doing in technology. And I found this 30-person reseller of security technologies that had a real passion for focusing on security and helping large companies advance their security posture, and somehow convinced Robert to let me in. And I guess the rest is history. I've really held a variety of different hats in the company, and today lead up the corporate development team.
Well, that's awesome. How many people work here now?
So we're approximately 300 people at the company. So when I started in 2009, it was around 30. So it's 10x from then. And the majority of our staff are security engineering staff or consulting staff, people that are in front of clients delivering services. And I think that's really a big part of the culture of the company, that all the way up to Robert, we're in front of clients, whether it's in front of the board or the CISO or the director or manager, we're all operators at this company.
So now that you do the managed services and you've grown to this rate, into this place, how do the services at Herjavec Group break out in terms of managed security services and professional services?
Yeah, so from a pure financial and corporate perspective, approximately 70% of our services are managed security services. And that's an important threshold that we crossed a couple of years ago, where more than half of our services were managed, because that really plays into the message that we give to our customers, which is security operations are fundamentally important to you. Cyber hygiene is critical, and if you want to keep up your hygiene, you need to be good at operations. Just buying an interesting tool or doing a one-off project is not going to keep you secure on an ongoing basis. Now, the other 30% of services, and that percentage fluctuates, but generally you can think of us as a company who does the majority of our services in managed services, and we fill out the rest of it with the rest of the life cycle of services. And the rest of the services break out about evenly. So you've got the technology implementation team that's doing your install and configuration of your security technologies. We've got an advisory group that does governance and compliance consulting, as well as threat management, red teams, pen testing, vulnerability assessments. We've got a standalone identity team, which focuses on identity governance, as well as privileged access and privileged ID management. And then, of course, we've got our incident response team, which does your rapid response, as well as your tabletop exercise and breach preparedness type of activities.
So I know you work with corporate development. How does Herjavec Group approach customer success when you're talking to your clients? What does it mean to you to be a customer's trusted advisor?
Yeah, so for us, everyone is in the business at Herjavec Group to make our customers successful. There aren't many other organizations that I've seen that are so dedicated to making our customers successful in security, and I know a lot of companies say that, but having been at the helm of our managed security services group and our technology services in the past, I can tell you that it goes all the way up to the CEO. We have an escalation process document, which is what we call how our customers get in touch with us if there's a problem, and it really goes all the way up to the CEO. Programmatically, how we ensure customer success really starts with my team, because my team does solution architecture, pre-sales, our contracts and legal team is there as well. And I think the success of a good security project or program is often defined by how well you architect the solution, how well you get those requirements from the customer and help them, guide them as to what their requirements should be. And then obviously delivering on those requirements is key. if I had to look at all of the projects we've done and all of the customers that we have and those who are happiest and those who are least happy, obviously we don't have that many that are unhappy, but occasionally you have some. It usually comes down to not putting in the hard work together up front to define what success looks like. And so that's really what we've been focused on as we've matured, is showing leadership to the customer and saying, this is how we're going to measure our joint success. This is the role we both have in getting there. And then, of course, delivering on that together.
So you talk to a lot of C-level executives. So what metrics are the most important to them? And has the maturity of this audience and of the boards changed in the last 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, so there's what I would consider to be a general metric and then specific metrics. So I think our industry has evolved into a general metric of, are you making me more secure? And that's a very hard thing to measure or deliver on, because it's a bit esoteric. Are you making me more secure? But that is really how we think about the metric for C-level executives at our clients. Because when I go to meet one of those executives a year or 2 years after our engagement, ultimately that's the question they're asking themselves. Is the money that I pay to this provider helping me be more secure? And so I always want that answer to be yes. In terms of specific metrics, there's a whole host of technology and program metrics that you can put in place that measure whether you're doing a good job or not. I think the way I've seen that evolve is that there's obviously a big focus on risk for senior executives and boards of directors, but more so than before, there's a focus on business risk and business value, as opposed to 5-7 years ago, it may have been more of a security and IT conversation. We have always called ourselves an information security company. Now we call ourselves really a cybersecurity company, because that's the term that's often used in the market, so it helps people identify. But that shift is meaningful from IT security to cybersecurity or data security, or really just overall business security. And so if I had to look at the metrics that people care about now, it's, are you driving my business forward? Meaning, are you really saving me money in the long term? Are you helping me consolidate my tools? That's an important metric. And if I'm a retailer or a utility or a bank, my main business isn't in cybersecurity. So as a CISO, my boss as a CISO or my board wants to know, how am I enabling the bank to bring in more funds under management? How am I enabling the utility to deliver successful utility services? Or in a retailer, how am I enabling my business to sell more? So we as a provider, if we're not driving that conversation with our customers as to how our service helps them deliver business value, then we're being left behind. So in sum, the shift in the metrics is really more towards business risk and business value, away from IT risk and IT value as it was in the past.
Sure, cybersecurity is your whole business now, or a company's whole business. It's not just devices. There's so much more at play and at work now. So very good points there. And my next question for you is about something else that's changing quite a bit, which is compliance and regulations when it comes to data and privacy protection and things like that. So how is compliance driving your services practice at Herjavec Group?
So compliance has always been a driver for us, and it's, sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. And what I mean by that is, compliance can be good because it can force people to do things that they otherwise wouldn't do from a security preparedness point of view. And I think we saw this with PCI. PCI is still a big driver of business for us. We're PCI auditors. We provide PCI scanning. And despite how mature or how far along we are in the PCI journey, there's still many companies who are struggling with it, especially as they move up the tiers to a higher tiered provider. And so in that case, I think compliance can be good for customers because it can drive them to take certain steps they may not have otherwise invested in. Compliance, on the other hand, can be bad because it gives people a false sense of security or accomplishment. We learned from Target, they had a PCI audit and yet they still got hacked. Being PCI compliant doesn't mean that you're more secure, necessarily. And so we're seeing now, the driver from a compliance perspective today is really more so around privacy than it is anything else. And it's still a driver of business for us. We have a big privacy consulting business that focuses on GDPR and other regional regulations. And, different companies and customers have their opinions on these regulations, but I think ultimately what the regulators in Europe are trying to do ahead of many other people is to just get ahead of this privacy problem that we have at large and put a framework around it. So, I think generally the intentions are good with regards to compliance. It is still a driver of business for us. But the perfect customer that I would ever want to work with, and I think the perfect company out there, is one that considers their control framework and how it satisfies compliance, but where compliance isn't their primary or ultimate driver. Because if that's it for them, and that's the framework they're working on, and they just want to check the box, they're never going to accomplish those business value or solve those business risks that they're faced with.
Gotcha. What are some of the hottest areas of service that you're seeing right now?
So identity continues to be very hot. Identity is kind of the age-old problem that is becoming a new problem because the perimeter is falling away, proliferation of cloud services, zero trust model, APIs taking over the world. Well, when APIs are connecting to each other, those are really service accounts, and someone needs to manage that identity. So we see the demand for identity being very strong. And what we're trying to do is approach it a bit differently from others and say, identity is a key part of security operations. So how do you get those outputs from your identity governance solution and your privileged access management solution? Make sure that the SOC analysts can see that intelligence because it's critical when they make their decisions. So identity continues to be hot. I think the managed services market related to log management and endpoint and perimeter is evolving. Whereas previously people looked for tools that they could have managed, now they're looking for an end-to-end managed SOC process that may or may not be tool specific, maybe SOC as a service. And so I see the world going in that direction to become less focused on tools and more focused on outcomes. And then from a specific niche security point of view, operational technology is the next frontier for us. So some people see this as the Internet of Things market, and that's somewhat what it is. I consider the Internet of Things to be a consumer devices that are becoming connected to the internet that traditionally weren't.
And things like that.
Exactly, your smart toaster, whatever the case may be. Whereas operational technology is those systems that are running the manufacturing and mining infrastructures of the world, critical infrastructure that previously may not have been connected to the internet. They were segregated in traditional network segmentation. But now, some of those devices are becoming connected. People are bringing internet to the shop floor. CISOs are starting to be given a mandate to control both corporate and industrial security, and they want data from both of them correlated. And what that's leading to is, new threats in those OT environments. And these environments are made up of tools that sometimes haven't been touched in decades and haven't been patched and have known vulnerabilities, which by itself in an isolated environment isn't a bad thing. But when you bring internet there, it creates a whole host of problems.
Sure, you're opening all sorts of doors.
Exactly.
Breaches.
Exactly. And so we're looking at novel ways from a tool perspective and from a service perspective to address that risk for our customers, and we think it's going to be a big driver in the next year and beyond.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do with the OT environments and the market there. Tell me a little bit about your content development strategy that you've put into place at Herjavec Group.
Yeah, so content development is one of the key tenets of managed security services from our perspective, because doing a good security operation is going to be contingent on what content you have in your detection tools that is going to drive the outcomes to your SOC. And so we approach it, what many people do when they invest in a threat detection tool, whether it be a SIEM or something else, they say, let's look at the out-of-the-box rules that the vendor provides me, and let's turn a bunch of them on and get the ball rolling. What that creates is a lot of noise, and so we approach it completely differently, and we say, let's look at a threat framework as to the key types of attack categories that are important for you to measure and catch if they take place. We call that our HG threat framework. It's a list of attack categories that we set up use cases for and just get a baseline of security going for our customers so that we're confident that we can monitor key threats to their environment and that they're confident that they have a baseline approach to security. That's step one. Step two, and really in parallel, is business-specific use cases. So if we're managing a financial, there may be a SWIFT-specific use case, or there may be an e-commerce application-specific use case if you're a retailer, or every business has something specific to their operations that those customers know that, we want as inputs to this content development process. We come to the table with suggestions, but every customer has their specific business use cases that they need to bring to the table. That's important for security, but it's also important to show that business value to make sure that those are being delivered upon. So that's level 2. We then have level 3 and 4 above that, which is at level 3, once you've established that baseline framework and you've done some business specific use cases, then we dive back into the library of alerts that are in the tool that you've purchased, and we say, what are some custom correlations we can do? Something a bit more special, something a bit more nuanced that will tell us if some more of the edge cases are happening. And we have specific examples of this and suggestions for our customers as to how they approach that. Once you've done all of that, you can really step back and say, how else can I approach my security? And you need to look at the available research out there. So MITRE's attack framework is a key piece of that. CIS has their, CSC has their CIS top 20, which is an important framework. And this is at the point of maturity where you're really deciding, what's the framework that I use to measure success from a security perspective? And then how do I code that into my system and operationalize that? And so that's the holy grail, I guess you could say, of content development. We want to get there with every customer, but I think the message that I have for people when starting a new journey with an MSSP is be realistic about your outcomes. We're not going to get to the holy grail in the first 3 months, but if we build a very solid foundation at the beginning, you will see incremental benefit as the months and years go on in that relationship with your provider.
Sounds like you kind of roadmap it out from A to Z for your customers. Just before we go, what's next as far as service advancement for Herjavec Group?
Well, there's so much on the horizon. I think I see the future in 2 buckets. One is the incremental, betterment of us as a company, us as people, and just keeping on top of the market. And so I think what you will see from us is continued growth. Okay, we've had significant growth in security services and just taking more MSSP market share and providing our services to clients, our novel approach to clients. So you're going to see that continue to spread across Canada, the US, UK, and beyond. I consider that to be incremental. In the other bucket, you have more of the moonshot aspect, which is, kind of the drastic change that could take place.
Fast.
Yeah,
growth.
yeah.
Right.
Well, that's going to enable fast growth, and for me, that is technological change related to machine learning, artificial intelligence. I think it is inevitable that will disrupt security more so than it is today. If you think about the way a SOC works, it is really like a learning algorithm, and the person that cracks that code of how do I automate the repeatable tasks that take place in a SOC. There are many companies trying to do this today. We're not the only ones, but I think we're in a special position because of the data that we have access to, the actions that every one of our analysts takes for every one of our customers every day,
Right.
for us to bring some novel solutions to our customers to say, we're going to continue doing what we're doing today, which you're happy with, but here's where we could take you, with some automation. What that is going to do is free up the analysts of the world to do more high-end security analysis and really could solve the cybersecurity workforce, the labor shortage problem. And if we can do that, but then also deliver that business value through a solution like that, I think whoever can attain that will really own the market for security services and will enable customers to get back to adding that business value so that they can sign on to that security service. So that's really what we're striving for here.
Sounds like you're doing a lot of great things already. Can't wait to see what the future brings.
Absolutely. Very excited for the future.
Thanks for chatting with me today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ira.